We're Robin and Steve. In the last episode, we left off at the Poor Knights Islands, Tawhiti Rahi. These islands have been uninhabited since the 1820s. And it's a marine reserve. This was our first snorkel so far in New Zealand with big schools of fish. From Tawhiti Rahi we sailed to Tutukaka to take a walk to the lighthouse. But we didn't quite time it right with the tides. So our pretty walk was cut short. This is a low tide sort of walking track. After a rest we sailed on to Whangarei, the northernmost city of New Zealand. On entering Whangarei, you see the beautiful Brim Heads on one side and a busy port on the other. It's a good place to see the forests of New Zealand in one place. We made our way down the highly manicured canals of Marsden Cove to top up with water and diesel and empty out our bank accounts. Then I winched Steve up the mast so that he could check the antenna connections and just take a look around. Connections at the other end of the mast looked okay too, so we went ashore. And like most New Zealand tracks, we took the steep path up. Saw some relics from World War II and got to see the currents we'd just passed through. The steep climbs are good for checking out where we'll be going. On the way down we could see the functional parts of Whangarei on one side and the picturesque parts of Whangarei on the other. Oh, and cows. Apparently the track is a good place to stand, so it was hard to avoid stepping in the juicy pools of cow fruit, sad. But a swim, a shower and a sleep later we were off to pass Tauranga Island and then Little Barrier Island, Te Hauturio-toi. For the first time on this boat, the wind was behind us enough to sail wing on wing. And don't we look beautiful from the point of view of Steve's magic camera on a stick? After passing this not very little barrier island, the wind died, so we motor sailed to Great Barrier Island, Aotea, which means white cloud. Dolphins briefly blessed us with their presence. Hello. But not for long. Playtime was quickly over and they were off to hunt for their next meals. Once we were tucked in near Port Fitzroy, we knew some bad weather was on the way, again. So Steve mended the sail bag during the calm before the storm. It was calm when we went to sleep, but gusted over 40 knots overnight. This island had just passed through the centre of a cyclone, and now more rain and lots of it. Boat bound with winds over 30 knots, it felt a bit cyclonic all over again. But this time it lasted only a day. And then we found which tracks were open. One of the open tracks took us in and over rivers. It's a good thing we chose just to wear sandals. beautiful forests we got to see our first kauri pine. Once common, now most of these have been cut down, and they do not do well in plantations. We knew once the track passed out of the river that we were in for another steep climb. We were on our way to Mount Heel Hut. In this rugged landscape, there are landslips all around. So we were kind of in awe of the Department of Conservation track workers. Thanks, team. Here's another great Department of Conservation hut, a cosy place to rest on the multi-day tracks. For us, it was just a nice place to sit. Poor legs. It was time to go downhill. And then back through rivers. We met a stick insect and a New Zealand pigeon, the kereru. These can be up to 850 grams in weight. We walked to Port Fitzroy. Little did we know that just beyond this mural, we'd see the weigh-in for the sports fishing competition. We did not expect to see this at the end of our hike. A huge marlin in this sized boat. This was 106 kilos. As adults, these fish spend the first quarter of the year in the southern hemisphere and the third quarter of the year in the northern hemisphere. Sadly for the fish, fisher people have noticed no more swimming for this fish. The next morning it was so calm that I got up early to do silks, and then Steve rewired the anchor windlass switch. Our small inverter didn't work, and on this glassy morning, Steve thought outside the box to get the food processor going. I do love the occasional almond milk. The previous day we'd walked 24 kilometres and 189 floors. We aimed to take a more gentle walk on this day. Way up in the thick scrub, Steve nearly tripped over this shearwater. We thought it was lost, but apparently this is a nesting ground. We headed back from our gentle walk to find that our friends had anchored next to us. We'd planned to meet here not knowing that there wasn't phone coverage. We found each other and then moved on to the famous Smokehouse Bay with its smokehouse, where boaties can smoke their fish, picnic tables, and many boaters dream not one bath but two. Firelighting is encouraged here. Whether it be for the wood-fired pizza oven, to heat the bath, or smoke the fish. We plan to spend the day here and do all of these things. Chapter 1. Prepare for the feast and do the laundry in fresh water piped in from the creek. We didn't film Chapter 2. We took turns napping and bathing. And then it was Chapter 3. Our crew prepared the wood-fired pizza and our friends smoked the fish they'd caught. Plus we'd made Tunisian chickpea stew and they'd made coleslaw. It was a feast that will live on in my memory at least. This stingray liked to get up close and cosy. Clearly, it had been fed. It swam over our toes as we were getting in the kayak. It was great to take in the view and catch up on things like how our crossings from Tasmania to New Zealand compared. So nice that we all made it here and could hang out. In this case, very gracefully. islands off this island, off an island. So Steve and I had a little look around before stopping at Kaikoura Island. Motu Kaikoura is the 7th largest island in the Hauraki Gulf. It even has an airstrip. Further on, the view was beautiful, and we could also get phone coverage to get the weather and check emails on this comfy log seat. On calm mornings we can't sail, so I go wild and do silks. I've developed quite a repertoire of moves that aren't sudden drops. That might not be good for the rigging. I'd made the fun but very impractical goal of doing a standing press to handstand before my birthday. This was 2 days before the day, with some bonus leg flourishes added on. So here's the evidence that it's time to pick a new goal. Perhaps world domination. This beauty is a pārteke, New Zealand's rarest waterfowl on the New Zealand mainland. On this island, populations are increasing again. We were honoured that this bird sat on our kayak. It even attracted an audience. Time for another waterfall. I gather the gum from this cowrie is not a good sign. Hopefully this was an innocent gummy trunk. This wasn't just one waterfall, but a series of waterfalls. It was nearly time to leave Aotea, but it still offered a few more surprises. Like this big skink. It's the biggest skink I've ever seen. And a rescue mission where ambulances can't go. Good luck. It was time to head south. We wanted to check out the Hauraki Gulf. Next time we'll swap out waterfalls for vineyards. We even set foot in a big city, but we balanced this out by birdwatching in sanctuaries and checking out a volcano.